Hello and welcome to another Magic the Gathering unboxing. Today I'm going to be looking at one of the premium decks from the premium deck series. So this series is no longer. Magic only ever produced, I believe, 3 premium decks in the series. It's very much, I think, a nostalgic product in that it pulls cards from all over Magic's history. So obviously there are some ways similarities between this and say the dual decks, because the dual decks does a similar thing, although with these what they did was for each of the premium decks in the series they picked a particular archetype that they wanted to showcase. So the first one in the series was a premium deck called Fire and Lightning, and so that was all red burn spells and fast aggressive red creatures generally, with a little bit of red sort of utility land shenanigans going on, small amount. The third one was one called Graveborn, which not surprisingly was a graveyard based premium deck, and with that that was actually pretty popular at the time because a lot of people were trying to get hold of some of the cards that were in there for like legacy graveyard based decks, and a lot of the cards on the secondary market in their original form are pretty expensive. So one of my local shops, there were several people like buying up multiple copies of the premium deck to basically provide a backbone for graveyard decks they were building. This one, which was the middle of the 3, was the Slivers deck, and obviously this is more relevant now because we've seen a return to Slivers in M14, but at the time the decks didn't sell particularly well. I remember when I bought this, this was way below the recommended retail rate, which is quite unusual for a sealed product nowadays. For pre-con decks, often there's a bit of a sort of markup on them. So I did quite well with this at the time. Interestingly now, these have gone up a little bit because of their popularity in Commander, because this came out before the Commander product, and also probably because of a recent interest in Slivers again through M14. So we're going to open this up. This is an all foil product, and as part of the video, if I get time, I'm going to just talk a little bit about the problems of foils. So it's a 60 card deck, there's no sideboard in it. It comes in this sort of nice presentation pack. The foiling on it, to me, seems very similar to the foiling on the From the Vaults product. Let's just open this up. Okay, we have one spin down counter here. So let's just find, there's our, and also what they did was the cards themselves, rather than have the original logo from the set they came from, they obviously had a personalised logo for this product. So that was a sliver symbol that they used to indicate the cards were from this particular product. Let's find out what's actually in the premium deck. What they do with this is they put some of it in here and then some of it in the box so they can sort of showcase this. So what we'll do is we will just take these out. Oops. Pretty well wedged in there, so you just got to be careful. Really doesn't help. There we go. It's very fiddly. Okay, come out. Okay. So, as I've said, all foil. And what we're going to do, we'll just open this up. Just get a bit of an overview first before we start going through the cards. They give us some idea of where the slivers came from originally as well, like what set they were originated in. So not surprisingly, as always, there's the standard how to play guide. Then we get this deck guide, which lists. Now I don't know if it's going to list, because on the dual decks they always list where the different things come from, like where they originally printed. But here, funnily enough, they haven't done it. Oh, hang on, sorry, my mistake. Yep, they do it on the back. Yeah, so there's a much more extended deck list on the back. And under here, yeah, you've got, it's actually, I say extended deck list. What it does is, in fact, it lists all of the slivers through the ages up until whenever this deck was printed. So there's more, obviously, on here than there is in the deck. So yeah, that's how they've got it. Obviously they've got the deck list itself, and then on the back basically a slivers through the ages list. So if you were a big sliver collector, you could use this as your master list instead of the gatherer. And then there's a little bit here, I think, about the history of slivers from a storyline perspective in Magic. And then there's a bit about playing the deck. So a bit of advice about, you know, when would you want a mulligan? So that's when would you want to reshuffle your hand back into your deck and then take one less card if the opening hand, reshuffling your hand wasn't particularly good. And the instances in which you might want to do that. And then obviously it goes on to describe how you can exploit sliver abilities at certain points in the game and when you should do that. And you'll see why this is important in a moment. Because the whole purpose with slivers is really exploiting this synergy. Now, at the time the original slivers were done, the synergy was very much with other slivers, so any other sliver. Now within M14, the synergy, if you look at the wording on the card, is with other slivers you control. Whereas this stuff, I think, generally was all slivers. Okay, let's just go through the larger of the two stacks. So we've obviously got our mana base here. Again, these are all foil. I don't know whether these are particularly customized for this set, this product, or whether these come from an earlier set. If they do, they look very much in the style of old style Magic cards. And you can see, not surprisingly, we have stuff from each of the colours. So there's some white mana, some blue, some black, some red and some green. So with that many colours, we're going to see some form of fixing here to try and cope with fixing of colours. So we've got Vivid Grove, so that enters the battlefield tap with 2 charge counters on it. You tap, add green to your mana pool, or you can tap it and remove a charge counter from Vivid Grove. Add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. There's 2 of those. Then there's a Vivid Creek, which taps for blue mana. Again, enters the battlefield tap with 2 charge counters. And again, you can use, you can create 1 mana of any colour by removing a charge counter from Vivid Creek. Nice straightforward mana fixing in the form of Terramorphic Expanse comes into play, and then you can tap it, sacrifice it whenever you want to. Search your library for a basic land card, so you can't search it for like say the Vivid Creeks. You can go down and track the basic lands, and then you put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then obviously shuffle your library. Rupture Spile comes into the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you have to sacrifice it unless you pay 1 colourless. and then you can tap it and add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. So more fixing for multicolours. Ancient Ziggurat. Tap, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells, which is very useful in obviously a Slivers deck, which is going to be heavily creature based. 2 of those. So now we actually move on to the part of the deck. So we've got, first up, we've got our sort of support cards. Here we have an enchantment, Wild Pair. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, you may search your library for a creature card with the same total power and toughness, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. That's useful where you have obviously creatures with the same total, and notice it's total power and toughness. Okay, so this is referring to something which I think people call girth. So you add power and toughness together. A Feto Dredgeling. Return up to 3 creatures card. To return up to 3 creature cards. I'll start again. Return up to 3 target creature cards of the creature type of your choice from your graveyard to your hand. So you do have some graveyard business going on here. Distant Melody. Choose a creature type. Draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. So some card draw, exploiting the fact that this deck is going to have lots of creatures in play of a certain type, which in this case would be type Sliver. Heartstone. So what does that do? Well, activated abilities of creatures you cost 1 less to activate. This effect can reduce the amount of mana and ability cost to activate to less than 1 mana. Now, interesting, it says activated abilities of creatures cost, not creatures you control, so it's across the board. Now we move on to some slivers. We've got Fury Sliver. All Sliver creatures have double strike. And again, it's all Sliver creatures. So if your opponent just happened to be playing against you with another Sliver deck, this particular deck, then obviously they're going to benefit from the Slivers and vice versa. That's a 3/3 for 5 and a red. You'll notice, again, because the Slivers have abilities which affect other Slivers, you're going to find that the cost to cast is going to be a lot more expensive than you would expect of a similar sized or power toughness creature. So we have a 2/2 here. So often in Magic, like you get these 2/2 for 2s, which are often called bears, here, instead of it costing 2, okay, it has an ability on it which gives all other Sliver creatures +2/+2. So that's going to make it slightly more expensive, but it is considerably more expensive in that it's 4 and a green. So that's a converted cost of 5 for a 2/2, but it does pump all Sliver creatures with 2/2. Fungus Sliver. So this gives all Sliver creatures, whenever this creature is dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And that's a 2/2 for 3 and a green. Now again, we're seeing a lot of 2/2s here. So this is going to be a combined power and toughness of 4, which is going to interact with the Wild Pair card. Each Sliver card in each player's hand has Sliver Cycling 3. So Sliver Cycling 3, pay 3 colourless, discard this card, search your library for a Sliver card, reveal it and put it into your hand and shuffle your library. Barbed Sliver. So with this, all Sliver creatures have 2 colourless. This creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Another 2/2. This one is 2 and a red. Spectral Sliver, another 2/2. All Sliver creatures have 2 colourless. This creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And there are actually 2 of those. There's an Armour Sliver in the deck, another 2/2. Again for a converted mana cost of 3, so in this case 2 and a white. All Sliver creatures have 2. This creature gets +0/+1 until end of turn. Spined Sliver. So this is a red-green. This is a multicoloured card. Another 2/2. Whenever a sliver becomes blocked, that sliver gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature blocking it. Hibernation Sliver gives all slivers pay 2 life, return this permanent to its owner's hand. Another 2/2. Quick Sliver. So this is the 1/1, it's got flash on it, it's 1 and a green. Any player may play sliver cards as though they had flash. Muscle Sliver. All slivers creatures get +1/+1. It's a 1/1 for 1 and a green. Gemhide Sliver. Very nice card this. It's 1 and a green for a 1/1, but it has all slivers have tap, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. So great mana fixing. And there are 2 of those. Heart Sliver. All sliver creatures have haste. Another 1/1 for, in this case, 1 and a red. Frenzy Sliver. 1 and a black. Another 1/1. All slivers have Frenzy 1. So whenever a sliver attacks and isn't blocked, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Clot Sliver. All slivers have 2 colourless, regenerate this permanent. Another 1/1 for 1 and a black. Amoeboid Changeling. So this is not a sliver. This is a 1 and a blue for a 1/1. It's a changeling, so this card is every creature type at all times. So not surprisingly, it can be a sliver. Tap, target creature gains all creature types until end of turn. Tap, target creature loses all creature types until end of turn. Virulent Sliver, single green for a 1/1. All sliver creatures have poisonous 1. So whenever a sliver deals combat damage to a player, that player gets a poison counter. A player with 10 or more poison counters loses the game. So this would have occurred, I believe, before the most recent poison block, which would have been Scars of Mirrodin, which had new Phyrexia in it. So the wording's slightly different. And there's 2 of those. There's also Metallic Sliver. So this is just a 1/1 for 1. So it's only going to benefit from other slivers in this deck. And there's 2 of those. So let's look at also some of the cards that were in the top. So we've got Coat of Arms. So for 5 colourless, each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least 1 creature type with it. So you can see in a sliver deck how useful that card is going to be. Factual Sliver. Oops, sorry, it'd be easier if I actually show you the card. Let's move that around. All slivers have 2 colourless, sacrifices permanent, you gain 4 life. Necrotic Sliver. So another 2/2, so more 2/2s here. 1 colourless white-black to cast this. All slivers have 3 colourless, sacrifices permanent, destroy target permanent. We have more land. We have a Rootbound Crag. So Rootbound Crag enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain or a forest, and that taps for red or green. So this is obviously something you want to come into play after you've got a mountain or forest in play to benefit from the fact that then you don't have to tap it. Acidic Sliver, another 2/2. All slivers have 2 colourless, sacrifices permanent. This permanent deals 2 damage to target creature or player. Muscle Sliver, that's the 1/1 for 1 and a green, which gives you 1/1. So some of these are obviously already we've seen in the deck, so these are just more copies. Crystalline Sliver, gives all slivers Shroud, another 2/2 for 1, a white and a blue. Wing Sliver, so not surprising, that will give all slivers flying. And then here we have our legendary creature, and here we have a Sliver Overlord. So you can see why this particular deck, once the Commander product came online and EDH became popular, why people started buying this product. It has a legendary creature in it, which obviously could be used to create a Slivers EDH deck, and you've got your Commander ready to go. And of course there were a lot of one-offs in this deck. Not only that, you know, the deck, you could do it on Gatherer, but of course you've got a nice hit list of slivers in this product as well, which would give you ideas for other slivers that could go into the deck. So we have Sliver Overlord. So this is all 4 colours. So obviously harder to cast. White, blue, black, red and green. It's a 7/7. So converted mana cost of 5 for a 7/7, but tricky to cast. For 3 colourless, search your library for a Sliver card, reveal that card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So it's going to tutor 4 Slivers. And then for 3 colourless, you gain control of a target Sliver. And then finally we have the Brood Sliver, 4 and a green for a 3/3. Whenever a Sliver deals combat damage to a player, its controller may put a 1/1 colourless Sliver creature token onto the battlefield. So that really starts to mix things up a bit. So those are all the cards in the deck. Now the next thing I just wanted to talk about is a bit about the foiling. Now it's interesting because initially I thought the foiling on here was very similar to the foiling in the From the Vaults, but I don't think it is. And the reason why I say that is the cards don't appear to be that bent. And one of the things I noticed with the From the Vault series was even a box fresh set, the cards were incredibly curved. And why is that a problem? Well, it's probably not a problem if you're playing casual Magic, but it can cause problems if you're playing in a tournament and the bend is so noticeable that it actually makes the cards stand out in the deck. And if you were, say, using some foiled cards within a deck that played a lot of non-foils, it's possible for that to stand out. And you know, there are various ways people can alleviate this. I don't know if counterbending actually really works, because the problem is because of the foil, and what's happening is you're getting a different tension on the side with the foil than the side without the foil, and that's what's creating the bend. The bend can go in several directions. It can sort of either go left to right, it can go top to bottom, or it can sort of go from one corner to the other. So you get this sort of cross bend going on. Whichever way it bends, it does mean that if it's sort of flat in a deck, it can stand out. So you could put it in a sleeve. You could pop it in a sleeve like this one and hope that that maybe straightens it up a little bit. That's not going to always work too well, and certainly with the From the Vaults ones, the foiling on that, it really stands out. Other tricks people use, you can double sleeve, and sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't, depending on the. And what happens is certain sleeve manufacturers produce sleeves which look to the eye very much like penny sleeves. It's sort of really thin plastic, but they're an incredibly snug fit. So when they're on the card, they don't flap around like penny sleeves. And what you do is you basically take the card, and in actual fact I've got this the wrong way out, because the idea as well with these, and these seem to really, people started doing this when people were getting paranoid about spills of liquid on table and people ruining their Magic cards. So you effectively are creating a watertight system here, where you've got a very tight fitting sleeve which will allow it to be placed in another sleeve, and the idea is you face the openings away from one another. So that's the other reason why people might double sleeve, is just to protect valuable cards. And it might help with a bend in some instances, but the problem is if your foil is incredibly bent, then it's very difficult to sort of unbend it. And like I said, this is a particular problem with the From the Vault. It's not as bad as I thought in this deck. There's quite a bit of bent cards in here, but they're not as badly bent as I've seen some of the From the Vaults. So that's just something to watch out for with foiled cards. And you can really notice it if you sort of take say a foil card and place it alongside a non-foil. And again, these are remarkably unbent, which is quite surprising me. Let me try and show you with another one. So this is a regular foil bubbling Cauldron from M14. If I put that alongside a non-foil, you can see there the bend. Another card, for instance, I've got Pitting Needle here from the Return to Ravnica, I think that is. Here the bend's in the other direction. It's top to bottom. If you can see that. And interestingly, if a card's foiled both sides, obviously the foil counteracts. The foils counteract each other. So this is a foil from. This would be a pre-release foil from. Probably. Is it? I'm trying to think. Dark Ascension, I think. It's a flip because it's a flip card. It's foiled on both sides, and that has pretty much no bend in it because it's foiled both sides. So yeah, just something to watch out for when we're talking about foiled decks. Just be aware that they do bend. They're often bent when they come out of the box, and they certainly will bend over time. This is quite surprising. It's not. Now it might be because I've been really careful where I've stored this. I have like an office in the basement, which is very cool, and I also make sure that it's not equally not damp down here. So I've got a cool sort of dry basement, and I think that obviously really helps with stopping cards from bending. So there we have it, the Premium Deck Series Slivers. Thanks for watching.